Okay, Dwayne again. We're at the second half of this lesson, um, and we've already went through the denial phase, and we're at the powerless phase. And so we're going to talk about only ifs for a few minutes. Okay, only ifs. As you get older, have you ever asked only if I hadn't done this, or I haven't done that, or she hadn't done this, or he hadn't done that, or whatever? You know, maybe you didn't make decisions, or maybe you made the wrong decisions. If you'd have made a decision, maybe you think life would have been better. If you didn't make a decision, maybe life would be better, whatever. So here's some examples. Only if I hadn't walked out. Only if I had have stopped drinking. Only if I hadn't ran that red light. Only if I hadn't been drinking and driving that night. Only if I hadn't met that woman or man or whatever. Only if I hadn't brought that man around my wife. There's a good one. Too many of these only lifts add to regret, and regret will hold you back in a lot of ways. Okay, in life, you learn from things in your past, but you don't want those regrets that hang in there and hurt you. So you got to turn loose of those only ifs. Luke 12, 2 through 3 says, "Whatever is covered up will be uncovered, and every secret in broad daylight will be made known. So then whatever you have said in the dark will be heard in broad daylight." A lot of truth to that, especially for someone who runs their mouth a lot and just talks and says things that can hurt others, talking about others behind their back, and it gets back to them. People circulate things around. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. So, and then it's usually not the same as what you said it anyway. So it's understandable to see why some people just don't hardly talk at all, because they've been through that, because people twist their words. They hear things, they hear what they want to hear. I mean, it's really interesting. The psychology of mankind is really interesting. It's really something that fascinates me. But sometimes it makes me happy, sometimes it makes me sad. But anyway, worry is another thing as far as, this stuff with the powerlessness. My mother used to worry a lot, right? So I bought her this book, How to Stop Worrying by Dale Carnegie, I think it was. And I think I was maybe worrying about her worrying. I was worrying about her worrying. Does that make sense? That's not very smart. Well, she's 92 years old now, so apparently she's doing something right. But she did get better about not worrying so much. But probably when you have children, you worry a lot. She waited up for me every time I went out. I mean, she was always there. Dad was asleep. He wasn't worried about anything. But anyway, think about it. If you worry too much, you can't focus. Now, I'm not one of those that says this emotion is bad or that emotion is bad completely. All things in moderation. That goes for anger. There's a purpose for anger. There's a purpose for anxiety. There's a perfect purpose for mild depression. It's little signals that tell you things, that something needs to change, in your life. A little bit of worrying is okay. Here's an example. Your children are driving age, right? And you bought them a used car. And you don't really know anything much about the car. But you don't want your daughter to be broke down, or your son to be broke down in some strange area, right? So instead of just worrying, useless worrying, what you do is you go out there and you take it to a mechanic, if you don't know anything about it, and have them check all the fluid levels, and check the oil, check the water, make sure the antifreeze is the proper temperature if you're in freezing weather. Uh, you look at the belts, you look at make sure the brakes are good. Those are things that worry can be beneficial. But once they leave the house, they're out on their own, and you just constantly worrying. I mean, you got to let go. You got to have a little faith. You can't keep them at home until they're like 60 years old and you're 80. I mean, you can't just keep. They've got to get out in the world and experience some things. And some of us were lucky enough to survive being a child. A lot of us were lucky enough to survive being a child, to be honest with you. And a lot of the things we worry about, you have to admit, they never happen. The worst never happens. So if we're always worrying all the time, we're not really focusing on productive things. There's things we can fix, there's things we can't fix. And there's things we should worry about a little bit, but worrying should only be used as a tool to encourage us to fix some things so we won't worry, such as fixing the car, okay? The serenity prayer, that helps. change the things you can. Don't worry about the things you can't change. Um, so there's a place in our life for that. Stay in the program. I encourage you to stay in this program. I know it can get long sometimes. I can get a little long-winded, but bear with me. I'm going to try to get these things down to 20-minute lessons each time. So Matthew 6:34 says, "Don't be anxious about tomorrow. God will take care of tomorrow too. Live a day at a time." Okay. So another thing here about powerless is escape. Okay. During the process of admitting we're powerless, we quit trying to escape and we face our problems head on. Well, there's different ways we escape. We escape into the arms of a beautiful woman, okay? We escape at work. We get away and we go to work and we work 90 hours a week. And we never see what we're running from because we're working all the time. Sometimes drugs and alcohol, that's how we escape. There's a lot of ways people escape, a lot of different ways, and some types of escape can be healthy and productive, and at least if you're a workaholic, at least you're bringing money home. But it would be time better spent if you could spend some time with your family. Money isn't everything, and I had to learn that the hard way. Okay, so oversleeping, food. Here's a new one that we haven't really talked about very much. People don't recognize this. This is one you'll have to go back to chapter 1 here about denial. Is binge television and video games. Well, at least if you're at work, you're making money. But if you're binging, watching 5 hours of TV every night, not spending time with your family, and you're running from something, that's a problem too. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's video games or binge watching TV or movies. You're still running from something. So you've got to get some quiet time and face it. Ephesians 5:13 through 14 says, "For light is capable of showing up everything for what it really is. It is even possible for light to turn the thing that it shines upon into light also." In other words, light turns darkness into light. Okay? And so you have to put a light on it first, though. Resentment, that's another thing that can happen if we don't admit this powerlessness. Over time, we can allow bad things that are dragging us down to continue. They just continue because we're not addressing them. There's a wound over here, a deep cut that's getting infected, and it gets infected more and more every year, and we're not addressing it because we're not even admitting that it's there, right? So that's kind of where that's coming from. And that resentment, it holds us back, but it also turns into those regrets again later in life. Ephesians 4:26 through 27 says, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down where you're still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold." Do not let the sun go down while you're angry. Do not give the devil a foothold. Nobody wants to live an angry life, It's just, life is short, It really is. How many times have you heard someone complaining about something that someone did to them decades ago? And maybe it doesn't sound like a big deal to you, but it was a big deal to them. And then again, maybe it was something that was just sick and disgusting, and you can't even believe that people are in the world that would do something so terrible to someone else, that's under their power. But anyway, if those people have power over you and you're still unhappy because of it, that's a little bit too much power over you. You're giving them too much credit, okay? Yank that credit back and try to get, free yourself from that. Letting that person go, not only, it doesn't just free them, it frees you too. So here we go, loneliness. A lot of times when you don't, admit where you're at in life, it can cause loneliness. You can talk to God about it and to others, and that'll help you not feel lonely anymore. So anyway, I know after my first divorce, I went on a few mission trips and really met some nice people. And I saw, I was going through a lot of grief and everything, but I saw how people were having to live in some of these third world countries. And somehow that made me recognize that I really had it good in a lot of ways. But it also allowed me to bond with some people that we're just good people. And it's important to be around good people, especially in times of your life when you're having a hard time. Okay, um, you don't want to be around bad people because it's just gonna make things worse. Um, anyway, Hebrews 13:1-2 says, "Continue to love one another in true brotherly love. Don't forget to be kind to strangers, for some have entertained angels without even realizing it." Being kind to strangers, and there's angels that walk among us, and you're kind to them, and you don't even know that you're talking to an angel. I mean, isn't that something? Um, Powerlessness also can cause emptiness. Many of you have tried to fix things yourself, and only to fail again and again and again. And you need that higher power sometimes to help you. God can help you do some things that you can't do by yourself. It's the honest truth, y'all. Get these participants guys and go along with the program. Print out the 12 steps, the 8 principles, Trinity prayer, all of that, and stay in this program. Selfishness, we talked about selfishness already. There's a lot of problems that come, and discontent that comes with selfishness. I mean, goodness gracious, one of the 10 commandments is, don't covet other people's things. And so they make 3 times the money as you. But don't be jealous. That's just going to make your life miserable. And it's going to not allow you to focus on how to get in a better place financially yourself. You just really adverting responsibility because you're spending all your time. All that energy can be better spent trying to get an education, improve your life somehow. There's some things you can do, you can learn, some trades you can learn that you don't even have to have a degree to get. Go work for somebody, study some books, go take a test. Next thing you know, you're in business for yourself. Some people don't have the personality to be in business for themselves. They have the personality they need to work for somebody else. But anyway, whatever your personality, you do what you can and put all this garbage behind you. Selfishness isn't going to help you get ahead in life, okay? Luke 17:33 says, "Whoever clings to his life shall lose it, and whoever shall loses his life shall save it." That's a deep saying. There's some things I'd love to say here that really only in the last few years they were so deep and profound that I didn't even realize it for years. And I think it's a little bit too early in the stage to talk about those things at this moment. But whoever clings to his life shall lose it, and whoever loses his life shall save it. When you pray for God's will in your life, what you're praying is to rip yourself out and to bring God in. And Lord, I didn't even know that really. I didn't really understand that until just in the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years. It's a fairly new thing to me, and as far as the depth that actually goes to. Anyway, powerless also causes separation from God. If you think you're God, that you don't need to talk to God. Okay, so does that make sense? It causes separation from God because we know it all, and we don't need God, right? How many times was things going great in your life and you didn't hardly pray any because things were going good? It was only in the hard times that you actually prayed. I'm going to give an example here of something that it was an analogy that came to me many years ago at a church. We went to a fall festival, and there was a hayride involved where, a few of us adults and a bunch of youngins was on this hayride, and we were trying to make sure they didn't bounce off and fall off and get run over or whatever. But we went out into this big field, and they had built a huge bonfire. I'm talking this thing was probably 20 foot tall, maybe not, but it was at least 15 foot tall, the flames and everything. And it was a cold night. This was probably late October or whatever. And it was cold, and that fire from a distance, it looked very inviting to us, to me anyway. So the closer we got there, and we were near the fire, and it was warm, and you could feel the heat, and it was just so peaceful and so nice and so calm. And then we stayed there and we talked and we hang out for a little while, and somebody did a little talk. And then we got back on that trailer and we started driving away. And I kept looking back at that fire over my shoulder. I said, you know, it's getting colder and colder. It got cold quick, actually, once we left the fire. But the fire kept getting smaller and smaller. And I knew that fire was huge because I had been there. But we were 600 feet away, 1,000 feet away, and it just kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller until it looked like just a little matchstick. But as far as our relationship to God, God is there. It's usually us who moves away from God. God doesn't change. See, He's got a set of principles, a set of things that can make our life better. Many times we're the ones that separate ourselves from God. Remember, even in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve messed up, they hid in the bushes. God actually came looking for them, you know, but they hid in the bushes and didn't want to be around Him because they knew they had messed up and they were embarrassed about it. Anyway, Romans 8:38 through 39 says, "For I am convinced that neither life nor death, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ our Lord." Nothing except ourselves. You know, that's the only thing that can mess us up. You say, I'm not going to go to church because I don't like so-and-so, or I'm not going to go to church because I saw that deacon out at a bar on Saturday night, or I saw him sitting at a table with some woman, and then you start gossiping about that and everything. So, you know, but really what it comes down to is, you know, you don't want to face the music, okay? I mean, hey, I've been there, and I've talked to a lot of other people that I've heard this story, I can't tell you probably a million times. But, you know, you just don't want to, you talk about someone judging you, but you're judging somebody in that church, you know. And there's nobody, I guarantee, I promise you, there's nobody in that church that's saintless or a saint and a perfect person. I mean, they're there because they're there. People are there for different reasons, okay? So a lot of people are there for the right reasons. But a lot of people are young Christians or they're old Christians that just never got into the power of the Lord stage of things, okay? So you need to pray for that person, and you need to admit that the real reason you don't want to go to church is because you don't want to face the music. But, you know, at some point you got to quit running and you got to face the music, okay? God wants us to be in church, and I know this COVID thing's going on right now, but at least read your Bible and try to watch some online services if you can, okay? So, and don't be fussing about someone judging you if you're judging them. Maybe that's their sin, judging somebody else. Everybody has different sins, okay? But what we have to do is we have to look at ourselves and try to get better ourselves. So, years ago, a friend of mine told me what her favorite verse was, and it was a very profound verse, and I didn't even really know it at the time. But it's really sunk in a lot over the years and explains a lot to me. But anyway, it's Romans 8:28. It says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." So we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him. Even in bad things in life, we can learn from. Even bad things that happen, we can learn from those things, and we can turn those things around. Even bad stuff we do, not just bad stuff that's done to us. We can turn those things around and use them to benefit the kingdom. So, anyway, admit things, quit running from it, face it. You know, we're wrapping things up now. Admit things, quit running from it, face it. Get over the denial. Accept, quit letting these things hold you back. Accept them. You know, admit them first, then you have to accept it, okay? Then you try to learn from it so you can move forward and not keep tripping up over it. And change what things you can, and the things that you can't or you're having trouble with, that you're kicking yourself about, just give it to God and ask Him to help you with it. And you got it's a relationship is a continual thing. It's not just a one-shot deal, you know. I mean, you know, you talking about a relationship with God, you communicate with Him every day. That's how you get to know someone, a person. You communicate with them every day. You don't just talk to Him once every couple of months. If you want to get to know God, you talk to Him every day. And you do that for years. You do that your whole life. Okay. Change the things you can and ask God to help the things that you can't. Accept the things that cannot be changed. And memorize that prayer of serenity. Memorize it. Do it every week. And look, I'll be praying for y'all. Y'all pray for me, because I know this one went a little over even last time. So I'm going to try to, I know how many pages I did, so I'm going to try to slim it up a little bit and slim this thing on down where maybe I can get it to 15 to 18 minute slots for each lesson. But anyway, I hope you have a good night. I hope you have a good week. And I'll see you next time. God bless.